Welcome back to the morning show here on the Rise News. Now, the aftermath of the hashtag #EndSARS protest has resulted in a wake-up call for the political parties, some of which have begun the process of registering technocrats and youths into their parties for inclusion. We're also seeing the formation of new youth parties in the agitation for good governance and equality leadership. Now, our guest, Ndi Kato, is a human rights activist and politician who believes strongly that the aftermath of the protest will metamorphose into integrated actions to solve the broken political system with problem-solving skills, a culture of public service and selflessness. Thank you for joining us this morning, Ndi.
Thank you for having me.
Let's actually start it off. First of all, let's get your perspective on the hashtag #EndSARS protest. Some felt it did not achieve its objective because they asked for too much or the demands were not specific. Some felt it has been a seed sown that fortunate that in the future we'll begin to see the fruits of these particular seeds. Where do you stand?
I think I'll be very caustic towards those who feel like we asked for too much. Asking for too much is literally implying that Nigerians do not deserve basic human rights. What #EndSARS protesters were asking for was for the right of the Nigerian to live and to not be killed and to get better policing. That is the basic level for any sane society. And if you say that is too much, that's literally you saying, you know what, perhaps you should die a little. Police should be able to kill you a little. The system that works now, where lives do not matter in Nigeria, is okay. And I do not take kindly to anyone who says that. At the end of the day, what #EndSARS has been able to achieve, yes, is sowing a seed. What people came out to do, what young people came out to do, was to ask for value for the Nigerian lives. And the Nigerian government responded with absolute violence and chaos. And that is not the fault of the protesters. That is not the fault of people demanding their basic human rights. Can never be. Now, the seed that has been sown is everybody has realized there's been a wake-up call that, look, whatever is happening in the system is not right. People did think that these were isolated incidents and, you know, some things have been able to pacify Nigerians, religion, all of that. Oh, it may not be me. God will save me. But the number of incidents, the conversation that kick-started enabled Nigerians to know that, look, there is a lot of chaos in the system right now. This system is collapsing. It is not working. And in one way or the other, we are all victims of it. And where this seed has been sown, most of the young people who came out for #EndSARS are middle to upper class young people. This seed has been sown in the minds of the masses. Most Nigerians are actually poor. And when many of them keyed into this protest, they began to understand that, look, if we push hard enough, people can hear us. We can bring this thing to a standstill till people listen. Of course, between #EndSARS and now, it's not like things have been getting better. Look at the case of the kidnap of
Ndi, thank you so much. Sorry, I have to cut you in there. But I want to just retract a little bit and go back to a definitional point. You've spoken quite a bit about human rights. Now, without ambiguities, could we go to a definitional point and define what exactly human rights are from a basic stand, not just from municipal and international law stand? And do you believe that many people, many Nigerians, are well sensitized about how this actually applies to them and when these rights have been violated?
Well, human rights basically are, like I said, with respect to this case, Nigerians and with respect to Nigerians is the right to exist and be respected and be protected irrespective of your beliefs, your social class, your orientations. It's really that basic. It's that basic. It's that the next person looks at you and this is a person, I may not know this person. Your life matters. I do not have the right to take your life, to take things that belong to you, to cause you any form of harm or disrespect. It's that basic. Do Nigerians know this? No. There is a reason. Nigerians, of course, went from colonialism, a brief stint of democracy and then into military, the brutality of all of that has also, followed us back into the democracy. Of course, the military boys are not away. Nigerians do not generally understand their human rights. This movement started putting that concept into the minds of many Nigerians. Nigerians would think, you know what, if I go out today, God should protect me. Not the fact that if I go out today, police should not, whether I'm religious or not, should not be able to do this to me. So in people's prayers, it would be that, oh, they shouldn't get me. God's mercy should be above me. And that should not be it. My European friends do not have to have these prayers daily. This concept is simple. And speaking of, things that followed us from military, an example is this, what's the name of this thing? This burning of people. I've forgotten what the
Jungle justice.
Jungle justice.
Jungle justice.
Yeah, okay.
I remember growing up in military barracks, what would happen is if a thief is caught or anybody who they think is wrong is caught, they would burn the person in front of people. Nigerians kept that concept. We seem to think it came from nowhere, but kept that concept until this date. Nigerians still believe if you wear camo, if you talk to military man anyhow, if you talk to police anyhow, but some of these concepts now are being doused. Like, you do not have to die for any of these things. Many people don't get it. The education is going further now. You could see during the protest, young boys confronting military men, collecting the belts they were using to flog. It is growing. People are getting tired.
All right, Ndi, I would like to find out, because like we've seen in the civil rights movements in the United States, which culminated into the Black Panther party that went on to challenge those existing parties in the U.S., what is the next step? What is the next logical step for this hashtag #EndSARS protest? Where does it metamorphose into that begins to become tangible, that people can say this was where it started from and this is how it has evolved to?
I would say political education and, people's basic understanding of their civil rights and their civic responsibilities. We will talk about political parties, but people need to be educated about these things, right? So we still have people. Look at immediately after the EndSARS protest, the Lagos by-election. In fact, general by-elections came and young people did not partake in those by-elections. So it seems that to this date, we're still having conversations on social media and more work needs to be done. Part of the excuses was that, ignoring the by-elections were a protest. But you know what the perfect protest would have been? Causing a major upset in those by-elections, whether or not there's a youth candidate or not, showing the major political parties that, you know what, we can bring someone from obscurity and make that person win. Those are how you make statements. And the opportunity to make that actually came up, and I think it passed. So what the rest of us have to, people who understand these things have to do, is to then focus a lot on civic engagement and educating people on, their rights, on the way forward, informing them on the state of the nation. This is what this news you are seeing implies. This is what this policy implies. This is what this corruption is costing you, and hoping that it will trigger something major in them with that new knowledge that they have.
Well, Ndi, thank you very much. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back to you very shortly. Welcome back. Thank you, Ndi, for joining us. And we're going to carry on our conversation as we've been going. So, Ndi, it's very refreshing to hear you talk so passionately about the concepts of accountability and consequence in relation to Nigeria's leadership. What steps do you believe will ensure a thorough implementation of this within the system? And more importantly, what will it take to impose the steps for the long term?
With respect to that, I think I have completely lost faith in the system. Again, if we're having this conversation, it should be with characters who have shown that they have the intention to change anything. What we are trying to do is have conversations that on every step of the way. The government is lashing out. Government has lashed out against local media, international human rights organizations, the United Nations. And we have done everything except do what it is they are supposed to do. So I do not see a way forward with the current administration. I'm really sorry, that conversation will just be futile, because right in the middle of the protest, I remember members of civil society who were willing to engage. And, early on, they're like, oh, why don't you come to the table? And I remember pointing that from experience, look, It is more pressure that would make these people act and just keep piling the pressure out of fear. At that time, if you remember, they were negotiating with ASU, like quickly calling ASU, please, whatever it is. And as soon as it looks like protest died down, they went back calmly. We're currently dealing again with huge issues. Over 100 people beheaded. You know how much time it takes Boko Haram to decapitate one person before they get to the next person? What we are dealing with is a non-functional government. So to begin having the conversation about, what steps does this government need to take? It will be a waste of everyone's time, a complete waste of everyone's time. They will not take these steps. They will not replace the security chiefs. They will not do anything to protect human lives. It is what it is right now. And I do not think that breaking it down or seeming to suggest for them again, after all we did the last time, I was on Arise TV, I was everywhere, breaking down 5 things, all of those things. They're not listening.
Indeed, but there should be a way out. I mean, it sounds like a very defeatist outlook. Because surely there must be. Otherwise, we have a band-aid solution. Otherwise, we're going around in circles.
The way out is civic engagement. I've said that, educating Nigerians to realize that this kind of leadership is not the norm. Educating Nigerians to fight for a change, to understand that this is not what they should be dealt. This is not it. That is the best for now. And then pushing legislators too. We're seeing some legislators talking about impeachment proceedings. All of the drama going on in that area, and enough attention needs to be put into it. I know media may have reported it, but I don't think that an agenda was set in the media on letting people know that, there are some legislators that are trying to push for the impeachment of the president. Also letting people know that the National Assembly calling the president and the president deciding to go on vacation either is not normal. And agenda setting puts that at the forefront of news. Puts that at the forefront of everything, so that is what the nation is talking about. That is what people are upset about. That is what people are reacting to right now. But it's not really. So what do? I'm basically insisting what everybody needs to do right now is civic engagement. It is that. If the government is not going to rise to the occasion, the people must rise to the occasion. People must understand that, look, you can put pressure on lower levels for this person to be impeached. You can put pressure in other quarters for this person to be impeached. At this point, there is no other conversation to be had.
You're almost sounding defeatist at the moment, I'm
not sounding defeatist. I am telling you that this government is not capable of delivering anything.
So that brings my point. That brings me to my point.
I'm telling you based on the fact that the president left Abuja, ran away from Abuja where the National Assembly called him to appear, went on vacation in Katsina. In Katsina, where he's on vacation, 600 young people were kidnapped. Do you know what it means to move 600 young people?
Now, I understand what you're saying.
It's telling you that it's a failed government.
If you can hold on.
Their efforts in getting the government out and not engage in it.
Now, if you can, now this is where I'm going to, because we've actually been speaking about the aftermath of this NSAS, and like you rightly pointed out, the people that were supposed to institute or be the catalyst to this change during the by-elections here in Lagos State, using Lagos as an instance, did not even show up. How do we begin? What's the next logical step to take? Because we know that to break a rock, just one hit will not break a rock. It's the continuous hitting of the rock with the sledgehammer that probably actually cracks the rock. So what is the next logical step to ensure that if the message did not resonate through first time, this second time, this is what we're going to do to ensure that this message resonates, and if it doesn't happen the second time, this is what we're going to do the third time, till we get the people out there to vote for the leaders they can believe in and that can change this nation.
Again, I stated this at the point where I stated the failure of young people to rise up to the elections, that look, what needs to happen now is education on how important these things are. People were creating excuses, but no, there's no excuse for not paying attention to by-elections. And so what we need to do is constant civic engagement, constant advocacy. Something needs to be triggered. And that trigger needs to be directed somewhere. Something needs to be triggered and it needs to be directed.
So how does that happen?
Constant education. I've repeated this again.
No, specifics.
Education. Specifics. Recently, I started a YouTube show, and it's called Ground Zero, educating people. I use the Ghanaian elections as an example, how Ghanaians went to the poll. I made it very conversational because it's really directed at young people. And the Ghanaian elections is just like a serious change. Like, it's so different from what we experience here. And you have many young people responding to that, oh, are you serious? This is how the Electoral Commission is supposed to act. This is what elections are. If more people actually put effort into that, also, I think that we should be very, very grassroots oriented in our conversations. Yes, social media is good, but how do we start youth-led movements at the grassroots level? Having people involved in this conversation is very different from going there as their saviors. You see, the magic of NSAS is once you said that there was no leadership, people showed up because they did not feel that they were showing up for one person. And that used to be a major problem, that if the normal activists show up and call for protest, we're like, oh, this person wants to use us to hustle. Once you said there was no leadership, people felt that they could take ownership of that. It's the same kind of youth-led movement we should be pushing for at the grassroots level. If the youth at the grassroots level feel that they have ownership of their movement, that they are engaged, people care enough to listen to what they have to say, you can continue to sip your messages in there and it will work. Let me use the example of my own area and the kind of work some people are doing. I have something called Women They Vote, where we engage women. And at that grassroots level, we're telling them you vote, and because you vote, you are supposed to get this kind of government delivery of inclusive services. So women gather, they gather to discuss, to gist. I'm not coming from Abuja or anywhere to tell them, wow, I considered you people. No, they gather in their own name. What we tend to do is to provide just small chops or small transportation here and there. After a while, when these women start to understand things, they add Asusu into, I hope people know what Asusu is. They add Asusu into it. It becomes like something beneficial for them. Oh, they are contributing money towards this, towards helping themselves. But instead of when they come there to just talk about the money during the gatherings, they begin to talk about politics, inclusion, what their leaders are doing, all of that. Then they start talking about their block votes. The 2023 elections, you have women saying, oh, we are not ornamental anymore. Our block votes mean something. And all of this is happening while they are organizing themselves for something that benefits them in the interim. Oh, they can apply for this. They can gather and go and meet their representative and ask for things. And there's strength in numbers. Before, they used to go and still meet these representatives. But they'll give them 100,000. All of them will come back. They'll be excited. But once you ignite that thing and you give them ownership of the movement, people will listen. And it is that critical mass we need. Social media is good, but the critical mass is out of it. We need to galvanize towards engaging the critical mass. But it's not just engagement, it's giving them ownership of their movement, of the conversation, directing them, but really taking a step back and not making them feel you are using them for anything. If you do that at the grassroots, it worked in Benue the last elections. Some little parties like ABGA and the rest won House of Reps in Benue. It was onto youth movement. It was on to
Ndi, thank you very much. I'm going to have to come in there. We're going to take a very quick break and we'll come back and wrap this up, please. Many thanks for staying with us, Ndi. I just want to talk about education. You've spoken about this over and over again. But I also want to borrow from a Peter Park principle of with great power comes great responsibility. Now, millions of Nigerian youth found a collective voice that reverberated across the world during the protests. But there were also some very, negative use of this voice and messaging with the activities of some hoodlums that vandalized and looted establishments across the country. How do we begin to modulate the frequency of our messaging as a country when seeking reform without inciting inflammatory and counterproductive outcomes? What would you say about this? Or should this be a byproduct that we should all just be prepared for?
Number one, the protests did not incite violence. This timeline of events exists for us to know, to remember. Like the timeline of events were very clear. And thankfully, I was still on the media saying these things. I remember giving the warning that once the government and political players, state actors, introduce violence and non-state actors into situations like this, they will not be able to control it. It's right there on social media and on the internet for you to see these videos and where I stated this. I gave example with militancy, with Boko Haram, in instances where Nigerian state actors use non-state actors to carry out violence or carry out their bidding. And when they had said, oh, you know what, we don't want again, they had no lead on it. These protests were largely peaceful. In fact, they were peaceful. Young people were organizing on such a great scale. This organizing of these protests and the messaging and everything did not lead to violence. The government, key players, political actors, they added violence to it. I remember young people talking about this. Look at where they are bringing thugs from. These thugs were attacking young people. These thugs were creating problems. These thugs killed some young people. There were key places where this happened. And once you introduce chaos into it, you can't say this is where the chaos will go or where it will not go. Let's also remember that on the 20th of October, when young people were killed in Lekki, these killings also went on in other places, went on in Alausa. These videos are there. The timeline is there. People's reactions to these things and the breakdown of law and order from that point cannot be blamed on the protest. It will be blamed on the irresponsibility of state actors to manage situations and de-escalate conflict instead of adding to it. So that is not, totally not. Another aspect to this is, I will quote Seun Kuti, I think he said it on Arise TV. Seun Kuti said, if violent elections do not invalidate, if violence in elections do not invalidate the result of the elections, why is everyone pointing to violence happening during protests? So these same politicians that are pushing this violence narrative and all of this coming to the forefront, I've not seen a case where we are saying, oh, you know, Mr. President or this politician or that politician incited violence during his election. What does that mean? Has that nullified? That conversation doesn't really come up. In fact, it's still us young people that carried out our civic duties by asking for their visas to be banned abroad. So this is not it. We did not introduce a violent conversation. We introduced a conversation to ensure the human rights of Nigerians. That was it.
I think at this point, a lot happened during the particular protest, and we're still witnessing the aftermath of it. Talk to me. For those that have still those that were actually arrested during the protest, what's your take on that? Because there's been a lot of outcry on their release and their continued detention. Talk to me about that, and what do you think needs to be done to ensure that those who have been arrested in course of that protest should be released?
Well, the team that has been helping with releasing young people has been doing such a great job. Modupe Odele and co. They've been doing such a great job. The problem then is with not knowing that these young people are being held. That's one problem. So there are many people who are still there but do not have voices. Like it's when people go visiting, or you know, somebody who has some sort of name or clout gets arrested, then we find out, oh, there are more people here. And this is actually, you know, symptomatic of the bigger picture. Nigerian police just literally takes people and keeps them there locked up for ages. If they are lucky, they get out. If not, most times, you know, these people actually end up dead and people can't account for them. That's on one hand. So we're still working. People are still working on getting these people freed. Some people, the problem is not having the knowledge. They're not as, you know, as known during the protest. Some of them are teenagers who joined the protest. Some people were walking home when they were picked. But as soon as it is found out that this person is being held and this is why they are being held, moves are made to free them. And of course, a high level of success is being recorded. But the key place where fear, you know, exists is where enforced disappearances happen. I think this is a month plus now that Imole Ayo was taken from his home. His wife described the people who came to take him from his home in Abuja as police and DSS. According to his wife, since then, we have not heard where he was taken to. We have not seen where he was taken to. None of them are admitting to it. This is similar to the disappearance of Dadiata over a year ago, and to this point, we don't know where he is. That is a new angle in human rights, especially on the international scene, enforced disappearances by a government, and this is where young people do not know what to envisage. You don't know, oh, if it is that you were vocal enough or you were not vocal enough. People think, I tweeted about this thing this morning, Nigeria has the ability to create the illusion that everything is all right while everything is not all right. Somebody can just mysteriously disappear, all of that, and it will be linked to this, but we wouldn't know, especially if the person was not a popular face. And this is what is happening to Imole Ayo. We haven't been able to locate him for over a month. If you're able to locate him, at least you can fight for his freedom. But we haven't been able to locate him. Also, you know, lack of responsibility at the center means that anybody can decide to act the way they want to. Remember that the IG of police claims he has nothing to do with the suit against stopping by the police to stop the independence panels. What does that tell you? That the center doesn't have control. So anybody can pick you up. Anybody with a personal vendetta, any police with extremist tendencies can say, oh, this guy, I saw him with NSAS shirts that day. I'll pick him. I'll do what I want. There is no central command. The central command in Nigeria is for corruption, not for proper function. And we are seeing that now. It can be anyone. It can be any group of rogue police people. It can be any group of rogue DSS people. And they'll use the power that they have from their jobs. And
Ndi, since you mentioned the judicial panel, permit me to just ask about this particular development and the story about CNN turning down the judicial panel's request to appear before them. What did you make of it? Some say it is laughable that the judicial panel in the first instance invited CNN, while some say that it is actually right that CNN do have a case to answer, since they were the ones that kept on putting out videos and putting out evidences that something happened on that unfaithful day.
A case to answer, I think it's I don't know. That's the semantics of that just feels a bit off for me. CNN does not have a case to answer. Secondly, I would understand, I mean, from the international community at this point, would not taking us seriously or not taking the government or anything set up by them seriously is something that I would respect. We are having these people going back and forth on who gave the order for the Lekki shooting. Then the people who gave the order or who are going back and forth or have lied at this point. The lie has been exposed here. The military will say this, the government will say this, they go back and forth, then the governor goes quiet for a while, all of that. These people have set up an independent judicial panel by them and are asking you to come. If somebody thinks it's a futile waste of time, I would respect that.
Hey, Ndi, I'm going to digress a little bit. I want to talk about another topic that is quite pertinent, gender participation and marginalization, which is one of the key messages you've amplified across your platforms. How would you say that this consciousness is shifting and evolving within the Nigerian political and corporate space?
Oh, it's still a struggle. It's still a struggle. One thing I've realized is that Nigerians will admit that you're a powerful woman. And then, before you would say, oh, they don't think that women can do this. But I think that since my teenage years, I have proven beyond reasonable doubt that I can. I'm powerful. And then the reaction to that.
All right, I want to say thank you very much for that particular interview.